Okay.
Okay, sorry, focus. Here we go.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Talk the Talk, RTR-FM's weekly show about linguistics, the science of language. For the next hour, we're going to be bringing you language news, language fun, and some great music. Maybe we'll even hear from you. My name's Daniel Midgley. I'm here with Ben Ainsley.
Good morning.
And Kylie Sturgis.
G'day, everyone.
Are you stuck for what to go as for Halloween? Well, a computer scientist is using neural networks to invent Halloween costumes. Do you think you could pull off Punk Tree? Or perhaps Lady Garbage is more your style? We're talking with the creator, Janelle Shane, on this episode of Talk the Talk.
I feel like one of these days we are going to have to do a series of shows that is like, this is how deep learning works. Because every couple of weeks it seems like deep learning has done this new thing X that is simultaneously terrifying and exciting. And at a certain point, it's going to be like, the entire world is going to be like, you all have flying cars because of flimmity flubbly floop. And we'll be like, at some stage we're going to be like, does anyone actually know what flibbity flobbity floop is? And everyone goes, oh, no, I thought you knew.
Well, I can't explain flibbity flobbity floop, but I can explain neural networks if you really want to.
Yes, we need to do a show on it. I think so.
Well, that show can be today.
Ooh.
It doesn't take that long.
Excellent.
Oh, I'm so glad. I thought flibbity flobbity floopy like, okay, here's the handbook and there's 5 volumes.
No, but it sounds like things be about to get a bit technical. So let's get an update on the world of linguistics in the week gone past.
Yes.
The Kazakh language is changing to Latin script.
We're talking about the language of the country, Kazakhstan, and the ethnic group of people, the Kazakhs.
Yes, indeed. And, they've been through some changes to their writing system. It hasn't always been the way that it is.
Okay, so currently I'm guessing Cyrillic?
That is correct, just like Russian uses.
Yep.
But, of course, prior to 1929, they did everything in Arabic.
Ah.
But now they're going to be changing to Latin, the one that we use.
So, Arabic characters, then I'm assuming, like, they became comrades, Cyrillic characters, and now I'm guessing they're like, hey, capitalism, sup?
Isn't that interesting how we always talk about how language is a proxy for things like identity? And this is really true for people, but it's also true for entire languages and writing systems thereof.
So it is a move to sort of westernize?
Well, apparently, according to the 2009 census, there was 62% of them who were fluent in written and spoken Kazakh, but 85% of the population is fluent in Russian.
But hang on, if 85% of the population is fluent in Russian, wouldn't that make more sense to have Kazakh in the Cyrillic alphabet?
Well, one of the other things is that about 70% of all countries use Latin script. So it's by moving away from Russian, they're essentially making themselves more economically viable.
Yeah, globalizing.
Yeah.
Right. So it is a westernizing move.
Well, there's another thing going on. Kazakh is not a Slavic language. It's a Turkic language.
Right.
Turkey made the move to Latin characters a long time ago. But now it looks like Kazakh is going to join their language mates.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm guessing they're more or less going to piggyback all of the good work that sort of Turkish did, figuring out how to... and work they had to do, figuring out how to make what I assume is a mostly Arabic-influenced language make sense in Latin characters, because Turkish has a lot of weird stuff going on to an English speaker, right? It's like heaps of diacritics and accents and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, and this is going to have some of that, but not much. One thing that surprised me is that for some of the characters where we use 2 letters, they're just using 1 and an apostrophe. So, for example, the sh, which looks a bit like a flat-bottomed W, we would spell it SH, but they are just going to spell it S apostrophe. Same with the ch, which is 1 character in Cyrillic. They're not going to spell it CH. They're just going to spell it C apostrophe.
I am on board. Can we do that in English?
It's interesting, isn't it?
I hate the fact that we got anything towards phonetic spelling, Ben Ainsley's on board with, because, like, why make it French?
I can't say I'm a huge fan of throwing apostrophes everywhere. I'd like to get rid of some of the ones we have. But
Okay, so can we add some more characters to the alphabet?
Oh, no, that would be great. In
Yes.
fact, I wish we had a sha, the sh one, in our language. It just looks really cool. And the other one that I love is the zh.
Oh, is that the funky Z character?
It looks like a butterfly.
Oh, yep.
It's beautiful. But they're going to represent it with a J. So now J gets one more confusing sound value.
No, there's
Yeah,
only
I know.
like 11.
J must be like, nobody knows what to do with me.
How many are there for J?
Well, let's see. I know Dutch, it's ja.
Yep.
And, lots of European languages. In Spanish, it's ge.
Yep.
heard
In English, it's j, which makes no sense at all. And that's the fourth one that I know.
Wow. J. Pulling so many loads.
That's what happens when you come in at the alphabet last.
Okay, so question, Daniel. All of this talking about how to present a language in the written form, has there ever been a movement amongst linguists who are just super nerdy that are just kind of like, why don't we just make all languages follow the IPA?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Have you ever seen a language that does that?
No.
Lots of languages that are Native American languages, they didn't have a writing system. So when linguists started studying, they said, right, well, your writing system is going to be the International Phonetic Alphabet. And it looks terrible.
Oh.
It's really, really hard. But I mean, it's great for IPA, right? You know exactly how to say something, for now until it changes.
Well, how often does the IPA change?
The IPA doesn't change ever. Well, okay, but the language will.
Right. Okay, I get you.
What I love is that English speakers freak out if you just try to change the spelling of a few words.
Yeah, I know, right? Imagine adding whole different characters. We would lose our minds.
Could you imagine? It's like, hey, what if we just change all the PH words to F? Not on my watch,
Yeah.
deviant.
Why would you want to turn life into a living hell? That is the approach that a lot of these people take.
So they're just swapping out the entire orthographic system. Love it.
Oof. Well, good on you, Kazakhstan, for just having I was going to say cojones, but I feel like, you know what, just having the chutzpah to just take a big old, you know what, everyone, we're going to just change all the signs. All of the signs.
Oh my gosh, all the street signs, all the signage.
Well, this is what comes to mind for me. Literally every official anything, every document, every website,
All the schools,
all the street signs, everything. Like when you go to the zoo, the lemurs, they're going to have different signs.
But it's going to take up until 2025 until it's all completely rolled out. So they've got a while to sort of practice it. And
Do they
get
have a
used to
while,
it.
or is it 2025 like a crack team of sign changers who are just working furiously?
Scheduled to be fully implemented by 2025.
Oh man, that's a big job. Good on you, Kazakhstan. Not necessarily because you've adopted mine, but just because you've just been like, hey everyone, we're doing this huge thing totally differently. Get on board.
This is just a guess, but I think that Kazakhstan might be a little bit authoritarian.
So they get to do these things.
But we'll check in 7 years.
Right. Cool.
Welcome to Talk the Talk. Okay, we'll be checking our time capsule. Oh, look at Kazakhstan.
I'm setting a reminder. And by the way, yes, I will be doing this show even when I'm that old.
Do it on voice command right now. Hey Siri, can you please make a reminder for October 29, 2025 to call Kazakhstan and see what's up with their written language?
Okay.
Great. Well, shall we take a track before we A, learn how neural networking works, B, figure out how computers can build our costumes for us?
Yeah, let's listen to With All You Writers on RTR-FM 92.1.
This week on Talk the Talk, we are looking down the barrel of the inevitable robot overlords. We do it from time to time, but this time, the benevolent computer dictators are creating lovely costumes for us.
Yes, it is true. Janelle Shane is a creative type of person who likes to play about with computers and artificial intelligence, and she has, in fact, designed a system that designed and named Halloween costumes. What were some of them?
Some of the ones that we enjoyed included Gandalf the Good Witch.
Yes.
I'm looking at Professor Panda and thinking, yep, that might be me.
Vampire Big Bird.
I'm on board.
So combine the Count and the Big Bird together.
Exactly.
Yes.
What did he say? But he'd have like two little teeth hanging off of his beak.
With the funny arm all the time.
Yeah.
Because the puppeteer can only ever do one arm and the
Yes,
thing at
he's
the same
always
time.
like this. Yes, that's true. The Strawberry Shark.
Yum.
And Party Scarecrow.
Yeah.
Has this computer just found random things, cut them up and put them together?
It's a bit more complicated than that, isn't it?
Most machine learning techniques work kind of the same way. You give them a whole bunch of data, they learn the patterns, and then they try to reproduce those patterns on new data, or at least just try to come out with something that resembles the original outputs.
So almost kind of like a bit of an extrapolation, right?
Right. It's like trying to find the patterns in language data.
Okay.
Now, the problem with most algorithms that we use is that they are supervised.
Right.
What that means is you have to give them labeled data. You have to mark it up with lots and lots of things like, let's just take the email spam task. Is this email spam or is it not? Somebody has to tell the system.
Right. So you've got to give them a bunch of spam mail, a bunch of non-spam mail, and it has to be like labeled that way. And so the computer goes, okay, that's spam, that's not spam, that's spam, that's not spam. I'm seeing some similarities and differences here. Great.
And then you try it on new data and it says, did I get it right? Oh, or yay.
Yeah, right.
The other thing is, on a supervised task, you have to tell it what to look for. You have to say, okay, I want you to notice whether it has these words in it, or whether it has any questions, or how long it is, and you have to sit there and think up what the computer should be looking for.
So it is very much like being a kindergarten teacher.
Exactly.
Yep.
That's with a supervised algorithm.
Okay.
Neural nets are unsupervised.
Right.
You can throw them data. You don't tell it what to look for. It just learns.
How? Like, what did we do to make that happen?
They're called neural networks because they're kind of like our brains. They are cells that are connected together.
Cells being modules of software?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
They get inputs, and if they get enough of an input, then they fire to other cells. Let's use an example. The task of figuring out whether there are cats in a photo.
Right.
Okay. So we've got all of these parts of the network, all of these different artificial neurons in this so-called brain, in this network. And some parts of the network are going to be really, really good at noticing cat-like things.
Okay.
And so the system says, okay, you're really good at that, so you can be the cat part. Whereas you're not so good at that. You're good at recognizing pictures of dogs, so you be the dog part. And so the brain strengthens certain connections just like ours, weakens certain others, and learns how to do cat things.
Now, my only question there, because that all makes a fair bit of sense, is if it's unsupervised, how does it know that the cat brain bit is good at identifying cats? At what point does it get any kind of validation on any level to go, like, why would it not go, all right, this part of the network, you're really good at identifying cats. Meanwhile, they're identifying echidnas, right? Like, so what goes on there?
Well, I did mention that some neural networks are unsupervised, but with some you can impose a little bit of semi-supervision on it. You can actually have an evaluation where it says, okay, those were the cats.
So the neural network does a little bit, and then it goes, okay, I think I found some cats. And then you go, yes, 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 no, no, yes, no.
You did
and
a great
all the
job.
ones yeses, then it goes, oh, great, that was like Terry, Steve, and Bill. Terry, Steve, and Bill are doing great work.
Let's turn you up and turn the other ones down on that kind of task. But you don't hold his hand. You don't tell it what to look for. Okay, now deep learning is related to this. It involves taking neural networks and giving them a lot more layers so that they have more possibility of interaction. And there may also be some manipulation of the network, like using genetic algorithms to let it evolve the best answers. It's a bit of a dark magic. They're really popular right now. I remember them back in the early 90s. They weren't very popular. Well, they were, but they were just one method among many.
Was that also because computational power just wasn't up to the task?
Yeah, and they were cumbersome and hard to set up. Now, there's a lot of great off-the-shelf software that you can just go ahead and download.
Cool.
And also, they're popular now because they've had some striking successes. Now, you know that beating humans in Go has been done.
Yes, and that was kind of like the last game, right? That was the final sort of like, well, no computer could possibly think as laterally as us in this game. And then it was like, well, but we can.
Improving performance for Google Translate. That was a big success.
Yeah.
And remember those bots that learned how to read lips without very much effort at all?
Yes, we were talking about that recently.
Didn't have to tell them much. Well, let's talk to Janelle Shane, who has turned the massive, frightening power of neural networks onto this pressing task, making Halloween costumes. Okay, this topic is just so much fun on lots of levels because, neural networks are popular. Halloween is popular this time of year, and you found a way to combine them. What is this project that you've done here?
Well, the project was I've been training neural networks to imitate all sorts of human things. So they look at data sets of craft beers, for example, and try to figure out what those sound like and what are the sounds, what are the letter combinations, what are the words that kind of make those up. And so I've done something like this for craft beers. I've done this for guinea pig names. I've done this for heavy metal band names. I've tried to combine guinea pigs and heavy metal bands. The computer kind of outsmarted me there. But in all of these cases, what I'm doing is I'm collecting a whole bunch of lists of examples, and then I just give it to the computer and say, here's your data set. Here are some examples. Why don't you teach yourself to make more like this? And without any further instruction from me or any feedback on how well it's doing, it just has to try and form its own internal rules about how to make more craft beer names, how to make more guinea pig names. And sometimes it has trouble. Sometimes it makes up words that don't exist, or sometimes it makes up words that it doesn't realize do exist and have another meaning. Like for some reason, the word fart is just very statistically probable in a lot of data sets. So it'll come up all the time, even when it wasn't in the original data set. So I've done these sorts of experiments on a bunch of different kinds of data, and I had always looking for new things to do, and had the idea, I wonder Halloween costumes, if, that's a thing, I wonder how the neural network would do. It would probably be weird. I don't even know if it could do it. So that was the impetus for me saying, all right, maybe this will be my next project.
Okay, well, let's take a look at some of these Halloween costume names. You mentioned that early on in the process you were getting names like Sexy Cat, which looks like that might have been in your training set, maybe.
That was in the training set quite a few times, actually. So I didn't delete duplicates this time, in part because there were a whole lot of Batmans, and I wanted Batman to be well represented in whatever the neural network came up with.
Well, he certainly is. We've got Space Batman. We've got Fairy Batman.
I like both of those. They're both great.
I can't decide which one I like better.
Yeah.
There's the Shark Knight, which
that
I'm
was
not sure
clever.
if it intended.
That was almost as good as Space Pants.
Space Pants. I quite like Pumpkin Picard. I could go Pumpkin Picard,
There's so many of these. I would love to see the costumes. Someone did dress up as the Dragon of Liberty already. That was excellent.
How did you crowdsource the data in the first place? You said that you had to put the word out there in order to get yourself a good data set. So where are these people coming from?
Well, I first tried seeing, are there lists of Halloween costumes online? Because sometimes there are lists of things I can just grab. That's excellent when that happens. There wasn't really anything. There were all these lists of, 10 best Halloween costumes this year, and, I needed hundreds, thousands ideally. And I tried looking at costume shops and seeing, can I scrape some of the names? But the names were all like, yellow, green, princess size medium costume. And I didn't want all of this extra stuff in there. And so really somebody had recently suggested to me that I crowdsource a different data set, and that was for Dungeons and Dragons names and character backstories. And so that collection is still ongoing. That data set does not exist already, and they said, hey, why don't you create a Google Docs? Why don't you create a forum, have people fill those in? And so I'm collecting those right now. I'm looking forward to having the computer generate stories for Dungeons and Dragons characters. And so once I'd had that idea, I'm like, maybe I could get Halloween costumes this way. People seem to really enjoy telling me about their Dungeons & Dragons characters, perhaps not surprisingly. Maybe people will enjoy writing about their Halloween costumes, too. So I just put the word out on my blog. I put the word out on Twitter, and I got us up to about 5,000 entries right now.
Wow, that's great. That's a good data set.
I think it's all the more surprising that with neural networks, it just simply doesn't know what the things mean. Now, so the principle is that you feed it data, it learns the patterns, and then tries to output more sort of like that. But neural networks are a little bit different from other sort of machine learning mechanisms. What made you settle on neural networks?
Well, I've been playing with neural networks from the start. When I say the start, I mean a long time in neural network time, a few months, something like that. So I've been playing with neural networks. I started out teaching them the right cookbook recipes because I'd seen an example of this guy named Tom Brew who had generated a whole bunch of cookbook recipes. And I just remember, I think, laughing till I couldn't breathe over this one ingredient, shredded bourbon. And I'm like, yeah, I need to make more of these. More of this needs to exist. So that's what got me into using neural networks, and I really like what they do. I really like how they invent words. I really like how they mash together different sounds, or take parts of words and add them to other words. So I really like the flexibility that you get out of them. I'm familiar with using them, so it was a natural choice to me to grab a neural network and put some Halloween costumes in there.
Janelle Shane, neural network enthusiast. What else has she done? She's done paint colors.
She's done paint colors.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Paint colors are already hilarious. I would love to see, because you're taking a thing that is already super dumb, right? Like super duper duper dumb, and making it even more ridiculous. I am on board.
Well, let's take a track, and then after that, we'll listen to Janelle's recounting of how that went down.
And if you're inspired by your own Halloween costume ideas because of this amazing list, do let us know. Give us a call, 9260-9210.
You can email talkthetalk@rtrfm.com.au.
And of course, we're on Facebook and Twitter @TalkRTR. But now here's Unknown Mortal Orchestra with Swim and Sleep Like a Shark on RTR-FM 92.1. Unknown Mortal Orchestra with Swim and Sleep Like a Shark on RTR-FM 92.1.
Why weren't they known? That's what I want to know. I mean, they're mortal. It's not like they're immortal.
I think they're pretty well known.
I think so as well. In fact, I think we need to address that about their name. They're the known mortal orchestra now, aren't they?
Well, Pond isn't a pond.
They're not even an orchestra.
It just doesn't work on
They're
any
a band.
level. That's it, Unknown Mortal Orchestra. You know what we could do? We could get a neural network to come up with a new name for Unknown Mortal Orchestra.
Well, it's already been done with heavy metal bands, so yeah, let's do it for Perth bands as well. Maybe that could be a project we could get into.
Recently, Kylie and I spoke with Janelle Shane, who uses neural networks to create humor, and she's behind that article that you've seen about generating Halloween costume names. Kylie and I got to chat with her, and here we continue our discussion of Halloween costumes, and would you believe, paint colors.
Yeah, definitely.
This was a more difficult task than some of your other tasks. I mean, with a Halloween costume, it has to make sense. It has to be a thing that you can imagine. Whereas this isn't so true with, for example, paint color.
Paint colors.
names.
This was a great one.
I'm just going to read some here, and I really want these to be true. Stargoon, which would actually be a pretty good Halloween costume, honestly.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Sindis Poop and Stoner Blue.
Light of Blast.
Yep.
Yeah, or Stanky Bean. Stanky Bean definitely got a great response online. Everyone was like, yeah, Stanky Bean is pretty much the standard colour that my apartment is when I moved into it. And it's like, great, I've got to get rid of all this Stanky Bean.
We're doing the walls in Stanky Bean.
No, we're getting rid of the Stanky Bean.
Okay,
what are we going to go for?
We'll go for a raunching blue feature wall. How about that?
Okay, that sounds even more dodgy, yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Or there's a really nice, bright sky blue color called Dad, which I would suggest.
Oh, that's charming. So did you find that for this one, because the Halloween costume names had to make some kind of sense, did you find yourself constraining it in any way, or did you just really just let it run?
I just let it run. There's not much I can do. I can't say, this is a word, try and spell this. I can't say, no, don't, not like that, you're spelling it wrong. There's nothing I can do. I just give it the data set. And, I can give it more brain cells or fewer brain cells. I can give it a longer memory, a shorter memory. There are things I can do to try to make it easier for it, or in some cases to try and make it harder. If the data set is so small that it's in danger of saying, oh, you want this data set? Okay, let me memorize it and give it back to you word for word. Mm-hmm. That's what you wanted, right? And, well, technically, yes, that gives you the highest score, neural network, but that wasn't what I wanted. So I have to take away some of its neurons and make it a little dumber, or have some other tricks just to try to make it struggle a little more and be a little more interesting.
Or don't use a character for character neural net, use a word for word neural net, maybe.
Yeah. That's an example of an approach that's used a lot, especially for more complex texts where you're trying to make whole sentences make sense, and that's your main goal. Rather than all these inventive words or rare words, I just have it make some sense, have it mean something. We don't have time learning how to spell the word crosswalk or learn how to spell the word donut or something. Well, just, that's your building block. Crosswalk, donut, and start with those, put them in the right order.
I think it's amazingly creative. Do you think, has the response, we already are quite astounded by some of them, has the response led people to start being more creative, you think, in return?
Well, I've really enjoyed some of the fan art that's come out.
Oh, really?
That people have done.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
People have drawn some of these. So they've, like most recently, somebody has drawn the sexy pumpkin pirate. That now has a drawing to go with it.
Brilliant.
And somebody else drew panda clam. So it's been fun seeing people's visual interpretations. There is now a band called Clardic Fug, which is one of the paint color names.
Yes, it is.
And they've written albums called Stargoon, and it's really fun to see all the ways
they better
people
give
are
you
taking
tickets to
these
their first gig. I got to tell you, you got to be front row for that. That is awesome.
Yeah.
And it all started here with their first album, Turdley.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I hope not.
Yeah.
That's kind of a single. On the other side, we've got Bunflow.
Oh God.
Ooh.
It sounds
In
like
that
something we would
context, that
probably
was
play.
horrible.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, you mentioned, I know that neural networks aren't exactly transparent, but there sure does seem to be a lot of poop around. There's fart and turd and poop, and these seem to come up over and over again. What's going on? Do you have any insight into this?
Well, I can say part of it is that these are simple four-letter words that use common letter and sound combinations that come up with in English, and so it's going to happen, as the phrase goes, I think. But there's also, I have to admit, when I post these things, I don't post them directly out of the neural network. I look through it and pick out the good ones. So there may be some selection bias on my part to present those to the audience as well.
What are your favorites as far as Halloween costumes? What would you go as?
Oh, if I hadn't already had a costume, I think I would love to have gone as Starfleet Shark.
Yes.
It's just, yeah, I like that.
Strawberry Shark was also a strong contender there.
Yeah.
I quite like Alien in a Hovercan or Beach Scarecrow. Seem like that would be a good Perth one.
I'm all about the scarecrows, especially Snape Scarecrow.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Oh my God.
I want to see someone. I want to see that one. I hope someone dresses like that and takes a picture.
What are you?
Just give them
If
lots
they
of
do it
candy.
well, it should be obvious.
Exactly. That's the thing. You don't want to have to wonder, right?
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, if somebody is dressed up as Panda Clam, you ought to be able to tell if they put any skill into it. Or Spartan Gandalf, another one that you should be able to figure out if you see
Spartan Gandalf.
That was it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once it's done, it's not up to you. It's out of your hands now. It's all up to the readers.
Yeah, that's kind of scary. Somebody's threatened to write a short story on the Fail Witch.
Yeah, that's pretty much my Halloween every year. It's just fail, which I'm sorry. Yeah, they just give me toothpaste. Yeah, it's pathetic. Any teasers as to what's up next?
Yeah.
I mean, you've done band names, Halloween's. I mean,
You've done perfumes,
Christmas presents. I mean, God, it'd be pretty scary. Christmas presents could be turning up. Really terrible jumpers and socks and things like that.
Top gifts, so yeah, just think about that. Well, I haven't actually done much with generating song lyrics, so that's one thing I'm looking forward to. Take some really familiar song lyrics that every, let's say, 5-year-old can sing, and see if the neural network can figure out how to sing it, and then try and make it harder and see if it can still sing it. So I have that one coming up. Looking forward to. It's going to try to sing Disney songs.
That was Janelle Shane, neural net enthusiast and internet fun person.
I wish that was my byline.
Me too.
But Ben Ainsley, internet fun person.
Well, it's true that neural nets are becoming the workhorses of AI, and they do show a very intuitive and almost frightening ability to solve hard problems that human brains can do. But in the meantime, while they're working on entire novels,
we get lols.
Exactly.
We get bulk lols.
So why not?
Yeah, really creative band names and really wacky paint ideas. Yeah.
And if Janelle Shane works out, maybe we can get some song lyrics as well.
Oh, I can't wait for the Disney songs generated by neural learning.
Well, why don't we listen to a song that was generated by AI?
Ooh.
And this one is called Daddy's Car. It's written by AI out of the Sony CSL Research Laboratory. It was trained on the Beatles. And it has lyrics and arrangement by French composer Benoit Carré. Daddy's Car. Daddy's Car, written by an AI from Sony and with help from French composer Benoit Carré.
I think it needed to be rebooted at the end there. Just oh crap! Twirling beach ball. What do we do now?
We regularly stalk the hallowed halls of the new and upcoming to bring to you the most tasty morsels fresh off the linguistic grill. We call this segment Word of the Week.
And this week we are going to be looking at the vocabulary surrounding #Citizenship7.
Okay. I was hoping we would avoid this.
I love it.
What's
wrong, Ben?
Look, I am grumpy, apparently, because I am just constantly being but my brain is like, do we or do we not still have people in detention centres?
Mm.
And we're talking about whether some guy's granddad was born in New Zealand. I'm like, this is a really effective, boring smokescreen about which I do not care and doesn't concern me.
As many people have pointed out on social media, what about #Uluru Statement? That came out at the same time, and yet it's just been completely overshadowed by, whether or not the High Court found 7 MPs ineligible to be in Parliament.
Now, admittedly, all things the High Court touch are inherently a bit interesting. Right? Because once the High Court says a thing, it's just like sucked in literally everyone else. Do what I say.
It's been called the world's most ridiculous constitutional crisis. According to Section 44I, you can't be a dual citizen of any country and be in Parliament. And who knew that so many
parliamentarians
had no idea that they were citizens of other countries? But that's Australia, isn't it?
Yeah.
How did I know that I was a citizen of Greece?
Big shout out to Scott Ludlam, who has packed up his office in Canberra. He's been on our show a few times. He was one of the first people to take a step back, along with Larissa Walters as well, who took a step back not too long after Scott Ludlam left the podium of senatorship. And best of luck to them with whatever future careers they're going to be having. But what happens with this particular 7? Because some of these people were digging in their heels and saying, nope, not moving. I am Australia. That is it.
And this is what I mean. This is kind of what makes it interesting, because you don't really get to say no to the High Court, do you? Like it just doesn't. There's just no legal framework for that to happen. What's Barnaby Joyce going to do? Just like lock the door to his office and just be like, no.
What he's going to do is run at the next by-election, and that is the first word that I wanted to tackle. What is by?
Ah, interesting.
It's a mini election, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
But what's the by prefix? That's what you're asking, isn't it? Oh, is it the cricket term?
No, it's not.
Oh, damn.
Good try.
That would be so Aussie.
Sports ball. Sports ball. It's a sports ball thing.
Bring in the second batsman. Out for a duck, Scott Ludlam.
I've got no idea. What's a by, Daniel?
Well, by means near, of course. So if you're by something, you're near something. And by, in this case, also carries the connotation of not being the main thing. It's kind of a side thing, by the by. So if I say by the way, I'm near the way, but it's not actually the way. So a by-election is not the main election, but it's just kind of an election on the side.
There you go.
There you go.
I like that. I've learned a new thing.
I wanted to play a bit of Family Feud with you guys.
Ding, 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 ding. Ben's ready to beat Kylie at a thing.
What else is new?
Can you guess what kinds of terms the press has used to describe this? Nobody has really described it as a citizenship calamity. Nobody's really describing this as a citizenship catastrophe, at least not in terms of raw Google hits, which is what I'm going to use.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what have they described it as? Fingers on buzzers.
Okay.
Who's got it?
Ding! A kerfuffle.
Not really, no.
Citizenship spill.
Nope, not that either.
A citizenship stuff up.
No, sorry. Anything else? Kylie, your turn.
Citizenship fail.
Not in the press.
Oh.
I'm going to give you a few.
Okay.
One of them was, at the bottom of my list, the citizenship debacle.
Debacle was what I was looking for. Dang.
One of my favorites, actually.
Debacle is such a great word.
It's a great word. Another one was the citizenship drama with 23,000 hits.
Oh, gosh, that's still not the top, though, is it?
Oh, no, we're down the bottom of the list.
Oh,
my
gee.
goodness.
Citizenship flounder, citizenship fail.
Citizenship wreck.
Oh, that is beautiful.
That is what is it?
I want to high-five you for that one.
Yeah.
Did he get it?
No, I didn't, because I didn't lower my IQ by
I
enough.
really like that one. Citizenship wreck. That's brilliant.
Well, after that, I can't really like these other ones that really did get used. But here they are. Citizenship scandal. Citizenship mess was also a little higher.
That's a bit
moving up the
floppy.
list. Citizenship crisis. I'm surprised that one didn't get a mention.
Especially with the crisis narratives in favor these days.
But the one that seemed to get the most raw Google hits was citizenship saga.
Saga!
Let me tell you a tale of these pollies who didn't know what they were.
The citizenship starts with an S sound. So citizenship saga, although not technically
bit of
alliterative, is kind of phonically alliterative.
Saga, crisis, scandal. Yes, yes, that seems to have a certain
Sibilance.
The other word in connection with this was a bombshell. It was a bit of a bombshell. And so I found out that the very first figurative use of bombshell, not counting blonde models or literal bombshells, was from the 1860s. This was from the American writer John Lothrop Motley's History of the United Netherlands, a letter which descended like a bombshell in the midst of the decorous council chamber. 1860. But you like militaria. What were bombs like in the 1860s?
Rudimentary. I can tell you that much.
I think they were just these black powder things.
Yeah, and not even smokeless powder. Like, we're talking like real ridiculous OTT, unreliable, just like, as often as not, you'd fire it and it would just go thunk.
Well, what they would do then is they would take a bunch of these bombs and stick them in a kind of vessel, which was the bombshell. And hence the word.
There you go. Does this wind us down for Word of the Week?
I think it might.
Alrighty, well, look, it was dumb and annoying. The kerfuffle.
We failed. We came up with better ones than they did, though. I mean, citizenship wreck.
Citizenship
That's
wreck.
just brilliant. Well done, Ben.
Look, I'm going to bow out gracefully at that point. I think I'm done here. I've hit my high water mark, and from here on out, it's seepage, really. So, well, Daniel is sticking around. Kylie and I got to get out of here.
Love to hear about your costumes. What are you going as?
Yep. And give us a call, 9260-9210. Halloween's coming up fast. You better get those wacky costumes underway.
Now let's hear from Lucy Peach with Bomb on RTR-FM 92.1. Lucy Peach with Bomb on RTR-FM 92.1. You're here in the closing minutes of Talk the Talk with me, Daniel. Lots of fun today. Lots of things that we didn't get a chance to mention. And here's one. I mentioned that the word debacle was one of the words that was used in connection with hashtag Citizenship7. And I really like the word. It's a great word, but it also has a very interesting history. It means a disaster, but if you look it up on the online etymology dictionary, it says that it literally means the breaking up of ice on a river. Now, how did we get there? Well, the de means off, just like it does in English. And the word in French, well, actually it goes back to Latin, bâcler, which means to bar. So the ice melts, it breaks up. I suppose that's the kind of thing that you use with a stick, a great big giant stick to break up that ice on the river. And in fact, stick in Latin is baculum. So that's where we get the bacle part. And in fact, if you know your logical fallacies, you will know that there's a thing called the argumentum ad baculum, which is argument from threat. You better agree with me or else you'll be in big trouble. Now, that's called the argumentum ad baculum. I suppose that means it's because if you don't agree, somebody's going to beat you with a stick. So people use sticks to break up icy rivers. Sometimes when the ice would suddenly flow, that could lead to disastrous consequences. And so we have, instead of de-sticking, it's a debacle. Fascinating. Claire on Twitter has sent me a message about a rather odd thing that's happening with octopi or octopuses. Which one is it? Well, here's the story. Octopuses are slithering out of the water on a beach in Wales. And people are a little bit freaked out about this because you don't usually see those leggy things using those legs to walk around on land. And in fact, they don't actually last long out of water, but they can walk around for a little bit. And it seems that octopuses, octopodes, they like to walk around and hunt a little bit when they need to. The interesting thing about this story is what newspapers or journalists are using for the term. Are they saying octopi, octopuses, perhaps even octopodes, the original Greek? Well, it looks like, as far as the news goes, octopuses is gaining the upper hand. And I think that's probably a pretty good thing, because octopi is one of those phony Latin sort of plurals that people like. They think it makes them cool when they say them, but actually octopus isn't Latin, it's Greek. If you wanted to do it supposedly properly, you would make it octopodes. Now, we did a show on English plurals quite some time ago, Ben and I did, but I think it's time for a little bit of an update. There are two ways you can go when you're trying to do an exotic sounding sort of plural. You can go with it the way that it appears in the original language, the language of origin, and you can do that. Unfortunately, sometimes we don't always know where the word comes from. So the other option is you can just do it the way that we do it in English. It is always okay to pluralize something the English way. Octopuses is absolutely fine. Thanks to Claire for that news story. John sends a message on Facebook. Hi, John. He says, there's a saying or a phrase I hear quite a bit, and I always wondered where it came from and what it actually means. Something like, it'll take a month of Sundays to happen. John says, I'm sure that it means that something is going to take a long time, but how long is a month of Sundays? So I got a little bit curious and did a little bit of digging and found out the origin of this phrase. It looks like the very first time it appears is in a book in 1759, where this sentence appears. The commander swore he should dance to the second part of the same tune for a month of Sundays. Okay, so it dates from at least that far back, 1759. That's quite a long way for an expression like that. And it was probably in common use even earlier than that. However, how long would a month of Sundays be? Well, let's see. Since the month is 31 days in our calendar, I suppose we could say, well, if you've got 31 Sundays from top to tail, that would take us from, let's see, January 1st till exactly the 30th of July. That's when that 31st Sunday would appear. And if we count them all up, that gives us precisely 211 days. So that's your month of Sundays, although it probably has nothing to do with actually that many days. It's just a colorful way of saying it. Well, Jackson is going to be taking us out to lunch very soon with all the latest and greatest new music. We will be back with another episode next week. And until then, keep talking.
This has been an RTR-FM podcast. RTR-FM is an independent community radio station that relies on listeners for financial support. You can subscribe online at rtrfm.com.au/subscribe.
Our theme song is by R Trees, and you can check out their music on rtrees.com and everywhere good music is sold.
We're on Twitter at TalkRTR. Send us an email, talkthetalk@rtrfm.com.au. And if you'd like to get lots of extra linguistic goodies, then like us on Facebook or check out our Patreon page. You can always find out whatever we're up to by heading to talkthetalkpodcast.com.